Wonderful. Hopefully we are now recording. So it's a real pleasure to introduce Tech is the Future and Don't Forget the People, and having Ali Carmichael here, who's the founder and managing director of Experience UX, to tell us really about how, if we focus on people, that leads to a greater chance of success of our kind of digital and technology problems. So I'm going to hand over to you, Ali, to take us through this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you everyone for taking the time this Tuesday afternoon to watch this talk. I say I'm Ali Carmichael. I'm owner and MD of a company called Experience UX. We're based in Bournemouth, and we specialise in helping our clients to understand their kind of customers as people, and to then design their products and services around sort of user and customer needs. And what I'm hoping you get from this meeting, this talk today, is that we are all just people, and importantly, your customers and your potential customers, the citizens you serve, are just people. And that sounds simple and obvious, and everyone's sat there going, well, yeah, but we kind of forget that quite quickly once we get into our working worlds, and even when we get out into the street, we kind of forget that everyone else is just a person, and we're all trying to go about our worlds. The talk is split into two parts. So I've got the main talk, which is about 30 minutes, and then I've kind of got a 10-minute bit after that, which is maybe just going through a few tools if you want to go back to your work or your projects and maybe incorporate some of what I talk about today and some of the ethos. I've got some very quick tools to just talk you through after that, and that should be about another 10 minutes at the end. If there are questions, just chuck them in the chat and we'll pick them up towards the end of the talk. So today we're going to be looking at kind of how busy we all are, and how we find it also alluring to keep up with the trends, but we struggle to keep on top of it all. And really, I'll look at trying to keep a consistent focus and what that consistent focus should be, which the clues in the title, and why this is important, and give you some ideas, regardless of what industry or sector you work in. Hopefully, you've got some ideas and an ethos and some tools to take away with you today. Okay, so number one, we're already busy, and again, it's quite obvious, and I think you'll be nodding your heads a lot through this. Life is complicated and overwhelming. If you hadn't realised it yet, you know, we are all busy. If we meet anyone in the street and say, "How you doing?" The quick response is, "We're busy." It's kind of like a status symbol, being busy. But actually, when we look at it, we're not working any harder. If you look at studies, the number of hours that we work hasn't increased across Europe or America in the last sort of couple of decades. So the time we spend working hasn't changed really. So what's going on? Why do we feel so busy? What's happening? Well, of course, we are surrounded by devices and channels, with our phones, our laptops, our games machines, our smart speakers, our TV. Everything is connected, and this whole Dorset Futures is all about that and the technology that drives that, and it's all very exciting, and it makes a lot of our lives better, but it's everywhere. And when I was growing up, we had 4 TV stations and a handful of radio stations. Today in the UK, we've got 480 TV stations and over 600 licensed radio stations. So there's a lot of choice. There's a lot of things to take up our minds and to get our brains working and to get us making some sort of decisions. During lockdown, on average, we spent 40% of our days watching TV or online video services, which may or may not be obvious, but what we've got to remember in that time is we are looking at screens, and in a lot of that there'll be advertising being put in our way as well. When we're looking at apps, we're being advertised to. When we're looking at websites, we're being advertised to, and it's happening all the time. And again, it's all just things that are taking up our sort of cognitive load whilst we're trying to go about our days as well. Our lives are full of apps, social media, messaging, chatbots. We now have between 60 and 90 apps on our phones. We are using them over 2 to 2.5 hours every day. And again, there's a plethora of choice. When we're using these apps, we're being marketed to, we're being overwhelmed, and we're being marketed to by lots of other companies, and they're following us around the internet as we go. So again, it's just things that we're having to make decisions with lots of choice. There's lots of things being put in front of us, and it's all adding to our cognitive load and adding to our daily lives. And our days are filled with micro stress doses. And I steal this from Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, who, if you haven't come across, he's done a lot of TV work. He's got an amazing podcast. You should check it out. And he's got some really nice books. And this book, The Stress Solution, was one of his books. And they're very well written and very useful. I'm going to read a chapter, a small paragraph out of one of his early chapters in the Stress Solution book about micro stress doses. And maybe you can relate to some of this. And I'm just going to, if you can see me, I'm just going to count on my fingers as we hit a micro stress dose. Here we go. Take a typical hour in the life of Alexandra, a working mum. She's had a late night and her smartphone wakes her up at 6:45 a.m. She flips it on and checks her Facebook feed, where she sees that a work colleague is watching the dawn on a stunning Greek island. She flicks to a news site and sees some horrible photos taken in the wake of a mains gas explosion and a headline about a hate crime thousands of miles away in Canada. She gets a text message from her phone provider telling her that a bill is ready to view. Her husband tuts at the pinging of her phone. She realised that a heavy stomach and a blurry head after last night's treat of a pizza and an extra large glass of wine, which she had allowed herself after a stress-filled day. She notices there are paw prints on the duvet as Muffles has been sleeping on the bed again. She gets to rouse her son, who yells at her. Feeling groggy and irritable, she yells back. She goes to the kitchen, sees through the window that it's raining, registers how dirty the windows are, remembers she has to track down a plumber to check out the weird dripping noises coming from the hot water tank, has another quick look at her phone as the kettle boils, sees the chocolate biscuits are all left over from last night and thinks, sod it, I'm eating one. She realises her son still hasn't got out of bed and now feeling really frustrated barks at him to get a bloody move on. So within kind of 10 minutes of Alexandra's morning, she's had 21 micro stress doses, as Dr. Rangan Chatterjee would call them. So again, on top of all that kind of that noise and all those channels and all those devices, our kind of world feels full of these sort of micro stresses as well. It's just kind of the world as it's become with all this, all these devices that we're looking at. So what's important to us is when it comes to customer experience, when it comes to experiences, well, PricewaterhouseCoopers surveyed 15,000 people across 12 countries, and unsurprisingly, convenience and efficiency really come top. And there's obvious ones there with friendly service and knowledgeable service. Good customer service, we have to assume, is going to be up there when it comes to customer experience. But with all this noise and all this going on, it's no wonder that convenience and efficiency is important to us. And part of this study was, what would people pay more for? They'd pay more for convenience and efficiency. Because we've got so much going on and there's so much taking up our time. So although we're working any harder or any more hours, there's so much going on in our lives that take up our concentration. We are all already busy. We're feeling busy, we're often distracted. And ultimately, when we're looking at launching new products and services, designing new websites to go live for our users or new apps, when we're putting new services out in the community, there's lots of competition. But one of our biggest competitions is time, and the time for our customers and our users, because their time is being consumed by all these different channels and this life that we live today. So number two, a blinkered desire. So we're in a world on top of that, which actually is wanting to do good. Being customer focused is just another way of doing business right. And there are a lot of businesses out there very much focused on doing what's right for society and for the bigger community. In the mid-90s, a chap called John Elkington created what he called the triple bottom line. And what that was about was saying, actually, businesses shouldn't just have a single bottom line, which is what we all are based on, which is kind of that profit. There should be two other bottom lines that companies should be based on their businesses around. The second one after profit should be the people account, which is how socially responsible an organization has been. And then number three is a planet account, a measure of how environmentally responsible it has been. So this was in the mid-90s, and what we've had in the 2000s and what we have today is something called B Corp, which you may or may not have come across. And B Corp is for organizations that have to sort of pass lots of tests, but they have to, I'm just going to read this off, they have to meet the high standards of verified social and environmental performance, public transparency, and legal accountability to balance profit and purpose. Some of that we should all be doing regardless, you know, having sort of being transparent and legally accountable is something we should be doing anyway. But having some of the sort of social and environmental aspects is really important too. So there's a desire from businesses, or for most businesses, to get this right and to be providing a better service beyond our day-to-day, that's for the good of the world and for the good of the community. We also have the rise of UX. Now, UX is the world that we live in. My company is called Experience UX, and UX is short for user experience. UX is quite big in the digital sector now, but really it's all about understanding users and designing for their needs and creating enriching experiences. So although there are lots of people out there now working in the world of UX, and that has grown exponentially over the last few decades and will continue to over the next few decades, certainly correlating with the growth of digital. There's lots more people out there with the role of UX. But why do we still have poor user experiences? I'm sure many of you got experiences where you're using your tablets, or you're using your phones, or your computers, or even your TVs, and you just have a pretty crappy experience. You're trying to achieve a goal, trying to find something or access something, and it just doesn't work the way it should do. You find yourself in a loop, or you get to the wrong place, or it just kind of crashes on you. With all this focus on user experience and customer experiences out there, I'm surprised we're still struggling with a lot of this. So this is a quick video of something that's frustrated me throughout lockdown, and it's from Eventbrite. I used Eventbrite throughout the lockdown period, and what I'm doing in this video is buying a ticket for an amazing storyteller called Jason Buck. He did a great service over lockdown, Monday to Friday. Every lunchtime he did a story for the kids, so it became part of our ritual. My kids, we had lunch, and they watched Jason Buck tell a story. He does adult stories as well in the evenings, and I've signed up to one for next week, which is about the hidden folk of Scandinavia, which I'm looking forward to. So I thought I'd try and buy this ticket, and knowing my frustrations with Eventbrite through the last 6 months, I knew I was going to come up a bit of a cropper here. Before we watch this, it's worth noting that Eventbrite, I did a quick check, Eventbrite have 14 people that work for them that have UX in their job title. They have 64 people in their organization who have customer experience in their job title. So you'd think with that number of people working in the world of making experiences better for people, it should be pretty slick, right? Okay, now this works a little bit differently in presentation mode, so I'm going to try and play this for you. Hang on. So here we are. I'm on my phone. I'm on the website, and so sorry if I'm not looking at the camera. I've got my screen down here, so I'm just seeing what's happening. So here's the landing page. I've just got onto the ticket page. I'm going to select my ticket. What's interesting here is an Eventbrite app has opened up saying that you've got the app, which I do have the app. That's interesting. But I'm trying to get this option at the bottom here. I can't quite get to it. I don't know what it says. I'm not quite sure. I assume it's going to take me to the next step, but I'm not quite sure. So what I do here is go to the app thinking, well, actually, I'm all logged in on the app. It should be a lot slicker on the app. So let me go and open the app. So it takes me back to the landing page for the talk. Okay, well, it hasn't taken me any. Oh, so now I've clicked the button for tickets. It's taking me back to the website where I've just come from. Okay. Oh, here's where I started. So just gone around a little bit of a loop there. That wasn't amazing. So let's try that again. So this time I'm going to have to click this button that I'm not quite sure what it does. I see it's there. It looks enticing in its color. So let's give it a go and see what happens. It should take me through to the ticket page. Bit of a gamble though, isn't it, when you do this? And it's still trying to get me to the app. Look at that advert at the top. Okay, so here we are. Now, annoyingly, I do have an Eventbrite account. I've come through for my app this time, which I'm logged in as. So you'd hope it would pull my details through already, but here we go. And one thing I'm frustrated about Eventbrite is I had to keep logging in all the time through one customer journey. So here we go. I'm going to put my email address in. Interestingly, when you have to put your email address in and then you have to confirm your email address, in usability testing, we often see people make a mistake in the second email address. So it always is a bit of a bugbear of mine why we have to put it in twice. That's where the error is often made. Here we go. Sorry about this. You start feeling the pain as I'm filling this in. So payment, now I use PayPal quite a lot. I don't know whether you do, but it's very convenient. Not only do I not have to go and find my wallet and put card details in and find my the numbers on the back of my card, it will normally pull through my address details automatically. So it's very convenient doing PayPal. So I thought I'd go and get the ticket on paper. So it's gone to the website, opened it up. Okay, I can do my my usual face recognition in here, which is very convenient. I like that. Now, something's gone wrong here, and I don't actually know what this is. I've not actually followed this up either since doing this last week. But I got this screen and thought, actually, I can't be bothered with this now. I'll go back and put my card details in. So I wasn't really too sure on how to go back, so I just used the browser back button, and I've ended up back at the starting point again. I've just been putting my payment details in, or trying to put payment details in, and here I am. So what's going on? Why is this not working? And I've spoken to Jason Buck, actually. He says for the organisers, it's a slightly better experience, but it's still quite painful. But this is Eventbrite. This is a global company. This is a company that has UX and customer experience in its ranks. Why do we still have experiences like this? And I'm sure you've got some of your own that you can probably share as well. So we have this desire. We've got people that work specialists in these areas that are experts in designing good experiences, but we still get these poor experiences. So we come on to the third part of the blinker desire, which is where it kind of all wraps up really, which is the convenient customer. So although many companies have these customer experience departments and people working in UX, and they genuinely have customer experience as a priority, there's a great desire there, but when it starts being executed, it starts getting muddled. When we start looking at personas, and we see how they kind of evolve over time within a client organization, with any big organization, the customer's persona and profile start being morphed to be a little bit more convenient to the organization, because we can't really truly see customers as they are when we're in our working worlds, because we're wrapped up in work, we're wrapped up in that world of our organization. And when we're looking at customers, we kind of naturally, without realizing, we kind of see customers doing what we want them to do, not actually what they are doing. So this convenient customer is a really interesting point that should be remembered. And it's no one's fault. It's kind of fairly natural. I'm sure we're the same with our own customers. It's just something that happens when you work and you're so close to your own product, your own service, your own projects. So here's an example of an motor insurance, from a client perspective, and we want to do a good user case. And let's write the user case for a user. What would a user want to do here? Okay, when I have filled in all my details, I get to the add-ons page. I scroll down to find key cover and add this to my premium, because the insurance company want customers to be adding the key cover to their insurance. It's an add-on that's a bit more money. So, okay, what's that scenario? Well, this is the scenario that they would write out for their user. But if we actually go and talk to the user and have a look at it from a user perspective, it can look a little bit different. I need to purchase car insurance. So if you look at the top one, I want to purchase. The second one is I need to purchase. The top one is I want to add car key cover. The bottom one is I just need something that's right for me. And when they get to the add-ons page, they'll start looking at it going, well, do I need key cover? Is that something I should have? If I should, is that a good price? That's the reality journey. And that's what we need to understand, because if we start designing the experience based on the first line, we're skipping a whole load of insight and understanding for the user journey. We're going to kind of either oversimplify it or overcomplicate it, but we're kind of assuming customers want to do this. Whereas when we understand it from a true customer perspective, what their real story is and what's actually going on, we can start seeing between the lines. Because when we understand the between the lines bits, we can start pulling it together into a proper experience, and then design a user journey that's going to be absolutely right for the customer. And if we get it absolutely right for the customer, I believe they're more likely to buy the add-on key insurance rather than we're just trying to force them down that route. So really, really important, we don't get wrapped up in the convenient customer. We keep an eye on exactly what our customers are doing and what users are doing. So blinker desire with good intention, still we can't see the real world of our customer, but it is possible. So third and final part of this is what I call project takeover. And this is when you're in the throes of projects, and some of you may have experiences of launching new websites or launching new products or launching new services. But we all work in projects. We all have things going on, and often there's going to be some kind of end user or end customer, and they may look very differently to people that are using a website, but the concept is still the same. Someone is going to be using this product or service, whether it's a bin collection service or whether it's a new app. There's still people needing to use it somewhere along the journey. So when we're trying to design these services and trying to map out what this is going to look like and trying to create this really good product for our customers, we can start with these good intentions. But quite quickly, new technology comes in. And as I said, the title of this talk is Tech is the Future. And technology has already changed our lives, will continue to in a very good way. But the conversations that happen internally when you're trying to launch your product or you're trying to work on your project is a lot of people get carried away by these new technologies. And some of you may have had examples, certainly it happens a lot in corporate world, is you get asked, oh, what are you doing about AI in your project? Have you thought about machine learning? And suddenly you're on the back foot a little bit and you're thinking, well, this isn't really an AI project, but if you feel I should need to pull that in, I should probably have a look at it. And then suddenly the whole project starts changing and you start looking at the artificial intelligence and the machine learning, and that's all very exciting stuff, but it might not be right for your project. Or if you start looking at it, you might lose track of what your project was all about in the first place. And suddenly it becomes an artificial intelligence project rather than what the project was in the first place. And the whole focus flips to it being all about artificial intelligence. Suddenly the stakeholders are really excited because they've got an artificial intelligence project going on. The whole remit of the project has changed and the pressure will happen on that as well. So top trends for 2020, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotic process automation, edge computing, virtual reality and augmented reality, cybersecurity, and blockchain. These are all things that people are talking about, getting excited about, and people want in their projects, but they might not be right for the project. And again, that's an important thing to remember. So according to IDC, and this was a quote from before lockdown, enterprises are expected to spend more than $2 trillion to transform digital experiences by 2022. Now, over lockdown, there's been a massive investment in digital transformation. So this number has probably gone up, or at least 2022 might have come into 2021. An awful lot of investment. But then you see this stat from McKinsey, where they say 70% of digital transformations fail to reach their goals. Now, I'll let you do the maths there. That's a lot of money that's not really being effectively spent. What's going on there? Well, there's going to be a leadership issue there, but you can already tell that this idea of jumping into the technology and running with it and rolling with it because it's exciting and it's new and it's costly isn't necessarily the best way to start our projects. They're great and they're going to really help us, but technology is the enabler. It's not the solution in itself. So we've got to keep sight of our projects. So the other thing that happens is keeping ahead of the Joneses. So not only are we trying to jump on the bandwagon with technology sometimes, I've spoken to a lot of organisations and teams where they really want to be ahead of the game. They don't want to wait for the competition to do it. They want to jump into the technology first. They want to be innovative. And innovation has come up a lot in conversations with clients and organisations over the last few years. People want to know what the innovation should be. What should be the next innovative thing they should be looking at? Again, they often think that innovation is going to be the solution rather than think about innovation as being an enabler to creating a better project or service for their customers. So I'm going to use an example I've used a few times before, and this is the example of Gibson guitars played here by Sheryl Crow and Fender guitars played here by Kurt Cobain. So Gibson is a 116-year-old company that went bankrupt in April 2018. Their CEO, he'd been there for a couple of decades, was very much focused on constantly innovating. Everything was about innovation. They're always looking to deliver new products. They wanted to be first to market with everything. And they focused everything around their internal beliefs of what customers wanted. And they wanted to be the Nike of music lifestyle. The Nike of music lifestyle. This is a well-respected guitar company, 116 years old. Why would they be talking like that? They went bust, as I said, in April 2018. Fender, on the other hand, their kind of key competitor in the marketplace, they had a very different approach. Their CEO was very much focused on the customer, doing the customer research, getting close to their customers, the quantitative stuff, the qualitative stuff, learning about the statistics and going understanding the why. What is happening? Why is it happening? Let's understand that more, and we can therefore create better products and services for our customers. So they found in their research, just a few things that came out of it, 45% of all guitars go to first-time buyers. 90% of those abandoned the guitar within 90 days. 50% of first-time buyers are women who bought online. And new buyers spend 4 times as much learning to play the guitar than what they spend on the guitar in the first place. So this is a really interesting insight, and they went out and they leaned into their customers and really went out to understand why these stats were as they were, what was happening, why were females buying online. And what they found was a couple of things. Firstly, they weren't really representing the female audience very well as a brand. Secondly, the understanding and the insight they got was that actually a lot of their audience don't really like going into music shops or guitar shops in particular. It wasn't an environment they really wanted to go in. So they focused on online. And online is fantastic, but you don't really get the one-to-one advice and support that you might do from a shop. So they made a big change around the bands they support and the bands they sponsor, the imagery and the branding to make sure they were a much more balanced organisation for both men and women customers. Regarding the learning, now they'd had a product called Fender Play. They'd sort of launched it. They hadn't really invested too much in it, but based on this feedback here and understanding the fact that a lot of people are still buying guitars, a lot of people don't last long learning to play the guitar, but those that do spend a lot more money learning than they do on the guitar in the first place, there's an opportunity here not to only encourage more people to continue playing their guitar, but a good business opportunity as well. And they've invested quite heavily in Fender Play, and it was a new version was launched end of last year. It's been a massive success over lockdown. So you've got 2 guitar companies, both of similar heritage, both with very different directions from their CEOs. One's gone bust. One, in a downward musical instrument market, is actually going up. I love that example. So finally, within this project takeover, we've kind of got all this technology that's kind of taken over. We want to keep ahead of the Joneses. We have a reactive culture. And again, we see this quite a lot at the moment. It kind of ties into the above, where when we're in our work, when we're trying to get on with our projects, we are being inundated with lots of different influences. So not only as people are we really busy, as we explored earlier, lots of things taking up our attention, lots of things taking up our time, but also when we're working, we have lots of things coming in on our projects. And this may be direct or indirect, depending on what your job is, but there'll be aspects of this where you'll be doing your job and other things come in because someone else is thinking about it or someone else is reacting to this at the moment. And again, this can all start building up into our worlds and start taking over our projects and start taking over our minds. And we stop realizing what we should be paying attention to. How do we make the right choices? How do we make the right decisions? We started off over here, but now we're over here. What's the best thing for my project? What's the best thing for my brand? What's the best thing for my products and services? Often the technology is already chosen as well. So by the time you get into it, the technology's there, and some of these decisions are coming in, and suddenly you've gone, actually, you're going to be using this technology for that. Whereas in your project, you haven't quite got to that point of making that decision yet. But there's a reaction to it. There's a reaction to what other people are doing. There's a reaction to the marketplace. And suddenly when there's reactive space where everyone's jumping around, no one's really thinking longer term. It's very short term thinking. And that's impacting the quality of the products and services that we're launching. So Project Takeover, we're distracted by shiny things. We have FOMO, and there's a great deal of noise out there. So all of these things are sort of are kind of in the way, and no wonder we're kind of busy and struggling. And these experiences that I showed you with the Eventbrite, which was a fairly minor experience, and these can be a lot bigger in these new software packages that are launched and new digital services that are launched. No wonder we're kind of left wondering what to do and how to go about them. We're busy. We have a desire, but that desire gets lost along the way, and we're trying to keep on top of trends, and we're getting interrupted, and the goalposts keep changing, and we just kind of forget the purpose. We forget the human. We kind of forget we're human ourselves. But again, we lose sight of the fact we're all people, and we're just trying to serve people and get things right for people. Our stakeholders suddenly become the priority. Deadlines and budgets become the priority. And that's rarely going to be the best thing for the product or service, and certainly not always the best thing for the end user or the customer. These big, complex projects get bigger and get more complex, whereas actually what they really need to do is get more simple. Because people are pretty simple, really. It is most basic, we're trying to get from A to B. And there's quite a few of these images go around the internet, but it's a really good example of, actually, you know, if there's no reason for me to go around the roundabout, why would I do that? I'm just trying to get across the path. And that's what customers and your users are trying to do when you're designing your products and services. People are just trying to get from A to B, and our job is to help them get from A to B as intuitively and quickly as possible, because people are actually pretty simple. And with all these other noises and distractions, we need things to be much more simple than they are at the moment. So of course there is hope, of course, and I think we can move forward as a society, and I think we can start changing things so the boardrooms are sort of not quite so focused on turnover and profit, or on stats and figures and money in effect, to more about customer sentiment and more about customer satisfaction. And I think as we start working more in that world, there's a lot more other things we can look at to help judge our organisations and our companies around that. It might seem quite far away, but things are happening, and small things can happen. And I think we can start moving there. And I think really, again, when we start looking at these challenges that we have, and we remember these things that are going on, but actually, if we can bring people to the centre of it, we can understand our customers, whether they're users, whether they're citizens, whether they're shoppers. If we really understand them as people, and remember the where people as well, and remember the people aspect when we're in our working lives, it seems to get forgotten. And actually we start building out from that, and we start influencing our work and our projects and our thinking around that, we can end up with much better products and solutions and services and digital channels. It seems quite far off to be having all our businesses just based on customer satisfaction. It'd be great to open up the FT and it's all based on customer satisfaction scores. Unfortunately, it's not. But things are changing. When I was doing the research for this piece here, I came across this investment as an American investment, and this investment is based on companies that maintain satisfied customers. And the article in Forbes that introduced this to me, and I'll just quote this out: the data tells us that no matter what else the market is doing, when customer satisfaction is high, a company's financial performance exceeds what people are expecting. That's primarily why the stock outperform. So we can start looking at good customer experience, good customer service, and maybe seeing it as actually playing a role in how we judge and invest in organizations. To get the whole world changing like that's obviously quite far away, but what we can do is start thinking about our projects, start thinking about our ideas, and our general working practices around focusing more on the user. This is the Ux Honeycomb. If many of you work in UX, you'll have come across this. This was put together in 2004 by Peter Morville. And the idea of this is these are the aspects, these are the facets of a good user experience. But I think these work in a number of different aspects as well, not just in digital. And so I think if we can bear these facets in mind when we're looking at our projects, and they could be internal projects, they could be external projects, they could be big projects, they could be small digital projects. But I think if we can keep these facets in mind, but let's keep them in mind from the user and customer perspective, not from our organization's perspective, then I think we could end up with much better products and services. And this is 2004. This is 15, 16 years old, but I think it's still very relevant today. From an experience UX perspective, we have a human-centered design process. So again, just thinking about how do we incorporate projects? How do you go about planning your projects through to try and think about keeping customers at the center? So we start with research, and that's about going out and understanding the customer as people. We're going about understanding what their motivations are, what their intrinsic motivations are. What does their world really look like? And we can send surveys out and ask people what they think. We don't really want to know what people think, because people generally don't know when you ask them a question what they want, what they prioritize. When we go out and watch them and we observe them using interfaces, when they're using products and services, when they're going about their daily lives, we can observe their behaviors and what's happening. And that's where we get really understanding of what is actually going on, what really are their needs and requirements, what are their challenges and barriers at the moment. We then move into architecture. So this is where you would take that insight, and before you start thinking about the design or the technology, for example, just start mapping it out. This is wireframing, this is journey mapping and things like that. And you can do this for a lot of different types of products and services, not just digital. Just start thinking about what the journey is through this product. What does that look like? And then we've got a very sort of basic framework. We can start putting some designs together, and then we can bring in the implementation team, whoever that might be, and start working with them. Of course, these services nowadays is not a waterfall process. We work in a very agile world. Projects aren't running across multiple years. They're normally a lot more fast paced. So there's a lot more iterative work going on here, but this works really well in that environment as well. Of course, from our own personal perspective, there's lots of different methodologies we incorporate within those phases, and there are many more besides, and different industries and different companies might have different ways of approaching these. But I'm just trying to highlight there are lots of things we can be doing, whatever sector you work on, whatever type of project you're working on, to try and incorporate the customer at the heart of what you do, and putting some process in place to make sure we don't forget that, and we don't get drawn into the convenient customer or get distracted by all the shiny new technologies before we're ready to make that decision.
Ali, we've got 5 minutes left, and there are a couple of questions.
Okay. Oh right, we really have gone a bit over there. Okay, good. So let me just end on this. This is kind of the last slide of the presentation piece. So just what if organisations, big and small, are run with the customer and its people as a priority. So board meetings begin with customer and employee sentiment. Growth and profit are lower down the agenda, and that's a really thing that we're looking to drive and looking to build our business around moving. So if you want to be a part of that, come and sign up to our newsletter. Is a great starting point. Where we're going to start talking a lot more about this, and I'm really interested to hear more about what people have to say. So do you want to throw those questions at me then?
That was a good slide to end on. So I think you know this, and Dave McRobbie has asked, great talk, Ali, thank you. What's your view that user experiences are too driven by short-term marketing goals rather than long-term business relationship building goals? Isn't it a contradiction that CMOs lead customer experience projects?
Good question, Dave.
You can thank him later.
So I think I'm going to open that up so I can see it as well. Wait, Dave. Okay. So, what your experience with that? Your experience is too driven by understanding short term. I can't read it. So short term. Do you read that out again for me? Sorry, Lisa.
What's your view that experiences are too driven by short-term marketing goals rather than long-term business relationship building goals? Isn't it? Yeah. So I think a lot of the time what we find is that I'm always interested that customer experience falls under marketing in a lot of organizations, as if it's some kind of sales tool or some kind of USP, whereas customer experience should just be customer experience for the good of the customer, for the good of the business. So I think it's great that people are talking about customer experience, but it shouldn't be seen as a P. It shouldn't be seen as a route to market and something we can shout about because we're doing it. So I don't feel it should be part of a marketing campaign. I think it should be part of a genuine business desire to provide a much better customer experience. So I think there's a challenge there, but all the same, whilst marketing people are on it, I'll take that if we can have the conversation to start opening that up. That's brilliant. And we've got a question from Mark. From a small business perspective, I think we go wrong when it comes to user experience?
I think from a small business perspective, it's probably similar to a big business perspective, and sometimes it's harder, isn't it? You've so many things taking up your attention. Budgets are a lot lower. You just need to think and get things out there. You're probably more reliant on templates and things like that, and it's much harder to do bespoke pieces of work and pieces of build. You're trying to be quick to market like a lot of people, and the competition's tough. So I think a lot of it is time and budget. And just trying to be quick. And I think actually what we need to try and do is to try and take a step back a little bit and just to think a little bit. And it doesn't take much. And what I was hoping to do is talk through a couple of tools, and maybe we can set something up separately to do that, just to take a few extra days and a bit of time and effort to just start thinking about it from a user perspective before we start briefing in what it is we need. So I think a lot of the time we fall into what we need as a business. I think we're just trying to flip that before we get into that, flip that to how can we better serve our customers? What do they need from this? Think about that first and then bring the business aspect to it.
Brilliant. That's great. Thank you, Ali. I think there's a real theme that's coming out today in terms of digital leadership, but actually really understanding people and what people need. So yeah, good. That's really great.
Well, I'll jump down to, so you can see the slides I was going to go through. So I guess if anyone is interested in finding out a bit more about just sort of quickly being able to look at a customer first perspective, then maybe we can set something up separately. I'm just trying to flick through here. It's been a bit slow. I don't know what's going on now. And then maybe if you get in touch with me, I can set something up separately and talk through this with anyone that's interested. Where's that last slide gone? So there's my contact details. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you're really interested. If this is something you're interested in, you're talking about already, please do get in touch. I'd love to chat to you. There's my email address. There's my LinkedIn address. If you want me to go through those slides with you individually, or we can maybe get a group together, let me know and we can set something up.
Fantastic. Thank you ever so much. So that concludes, well, I don't think it concludes. I think it's just the start of the conversation, as you said, Ali. So really brilliant. Thank you ever so much for being part of Festival for the Future. I've just said if people want to know more, hashtag Futurefest, follow us on Twitter at Digital Dorset. You'll find Ali's Twitter link on Digital Dorset as well for this session. But thank you very much for attending and for your contributions. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, thank you everyone, and thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Can you see the comments, Ali, as they're coming up?
Just, yeah, hard to take it all in, but yeah. Hopefully people enjoyed it and got something from that.
You got a thumbs up from Matt.
Yeah, it's funny. Gone through that talk a few times, and it was coming in at about 30 minutes each time. I was obviously taking a bit too much time on it. When you said it, I thought it was going to be 25 past, but it was 22. I was like, oh.
I know. I really hate interrupting people as well, because you get so into the presentation, and
it's a good thing. It stops you waffling on, because that's the other thing. You just end up, because I talk about this stuff all day, every day, so it can quite easily go on about it for quite a long time.
Brilliant. That's great. Well, there's nothing else come in, and you've seen some of the comments, some really positive comments come up. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. And yeah, let me know if I need it, if we can do anything else. And if anyone sort of comes back with questions, just let me know. And
we'll do.
Anyway, we can do a follow up. That'd be fantastic.
That'd be brilliant. Definitely. Good. Actually, we've got a couple where I think follow-ups might actually be, we might have to have a spin-off mini festival.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, like mini workshop version.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, actually some practical. No, that's an interesting concept. Brilliant. Well, take care.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to seeing some of the talks later. I hope that the rest of it goes well.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.